It is the 10th of September. I'm Howard Feldman. A very good afternoon. Yesterday, in a dramatic development, Israel struck Hamas leadership in Doha, sending shockwaves across the region and even beyond. To help us unpack not only this moment, but also the broader trajectory of the Gaza war and what comes after, we are joined by Gedaliah Blum. Gedaliah is the director of the Heartland Initiative, an international diplomacy platform that builds partnerships between Israel and its global allies. His work focuses on strengthening relationships that are both practical and faith-based, with a vision of long-term collaboration for Israel's future. Gedaliah, good afternoon to you. Hoping you are well. Thanks for taking the time to speak.
Thanks for having me.
Can we just start with yesterday's events? We don't know an outcome as of this moment, which is 1 o'clock South African time, 2 o'clock Israel time on the 10th of September. What do we know right now?
Well, it's interesting. We knew right away. We got reports from Doha that there was an attack on a residential building that was suspected to be the Israeli Air Force, the IDF. And within moments, which was the most shocking, is that the IDF came out with a public statement saying that it was actually, in fact, it was them. And if anybody knows anything about these type of attacks, you would understand that throughout history, we've always created this level of anonymity. We didn't say whether we did it, and we didn't deny it. Right away, right out of the gates, we said we did it. Could this have to do with the United States having a base in Qatar and being an ally with Qatar? Probably, because this doesn't sound something. It doesn't sound like something that we would traditionally do. That was one observation I had. The other observation I had, I mean, there was so much speculation. Who was in the building? Who was reported killed? The Saudis were reporting on certain things. The other Arab medias were. We weren't confirming nor denying anything. So there's a lot of speculation about which leaders were actually there, which ones were killed, which ones were targeted. And really, just only moments ago, I just got a report that said, in fact, that the intelligence came that they were in the room because we were following their cell phones, which is generally speaking why most terrorists in leadership do not have cell phones. But the fact that they did carry their cell phones is you could actually illustrate how comfortable the Hamas leadership was.
Yeah, well, you use the word comfortable. I would say arrogant in a way.
I mean, listen, I think they were very comfortable because they had cover by Qatar. They thought that just because, Yishmael Hanina was living in Qatar in a 5-star resort, and we only got him when he came to some sort of event in Tehran. So they felt that there was some sort of barrier of going in there. So they're very free and open. So it's interesting how these reports are always coming out, and we have to take them as a grain of salt. And just the latest report that came in said that the Hamas leadership was actually located in this one room by the IDF monitoring their cell phones. They knew that they were in the room.
Right.
Now the reports are coming out saying that the strike hit that room, that building, following their exit of the building, leaving their cell phones in the room so they could go pray at the mosque.
Wow.
That's what we're getting now. So listen, I mean, when it comes to targeted strikes, Israel can't bat 1,000. We're going to mess up sometimes. There's going to be errors along the way, and sometimes they're out of our control. And but yeah, we're seeing a lot of pushback here.
So what does it mean though if Israel didn't succeed in taking them out? Because no matter what happens, if they were taken out, it's a significant paradigm shift, because then Hamas's leadership it has been obliterated. If they didn't succeed, they now are aware of Israel's intention and what Israel was prepared to do. Does that encourage some form of a deal, or does it make them resolute?
It's interesting. The word, deal is a very, very contentious word here in Israel.
I get that.
Those there are those who are willing to make a deal under any circumstances, no matter how much Hamas reneges on any kind of agreement that they originally said that they would walk into. And and then there are those on the side who believe that any kind of talk of deal, especially from either the international community, they're being naive, or whether it's Hamas, they're using that psychological warfare. So the idea of anything getting in the way of a deal
Mm,
is preposterous. Actually, Yair Lapid yesterday came out publicly and said this attack on the Hamas leadership is an obstruction to a deal. And my question to him would be, well, what happened for the last 2 years? Have we not been trying to make a deal while they've been staying alive? How do you make that jump between attacking their leadership and now there's no deal? So there's a politically charged kind of conversation around a deal. But I think overall like this, I think either way, the rules are changed. If we killed them, the rules would have changed. If Because we didn't kill them, the rules have changed. Now they're not walking around with their cell phones anymore. Now they're passing notes or they're sending messenger pigeons like they used to back in the dark ages because they know that we're going to be able to monitor all their movements. Now they're going to be looking over their shoulder because unlike what most people around the world would think, there's many enemies of the regimes within these Arab countries. They live under the regimes. They're being oppressed and suppressed by them. And for the Mossad to be able to recruit, it's not so hard. It's not so hard to recruit in the Arab world. So they're going to have to look out for who's in the room with them, who's following them around. They're going to be living in a place in a new place every night. They're not going to be sleeping in the same place. So the rules have completely changed. And not only that, it's going to make their communications with the Hamas in Gaza much more difficult, in which we're already seeing, and we've seen already for over a year, that really the Hamas leadership in Qatar doesn't really have the operational control over what's going on the ground. So there has been a split.
So in a way, it's more torment not to have been killed by it, because it's a lifetime of however long they still do survive. It is a period of incredible anxiety and with no virgins.
Yeah, I mean, as Jews, we like to look at all the optimistic side of things. We failed in killing the leadership, but exactly what you just said, like there is a silver lining that they are going to be able to witness. By the way, I just want to say something. Just because we missed them and we didn't kill them this time, it doesn't mean we're not going to do it. It just means we need a rain check. There's a postponement here. So we're obviously going to relentlessly go after them, and they know it. That's for sure.
Well, that's what's clear. That's the torment, I guess.
Yeah. And if they survive long enough to witness the complete and utter taking over of Gaza by our armed forces, by the opening of the borders, by the voluntary migration from Gaza, which is already happening, by the way.
What you're saying is that there is a significant shift in either, no matter what's happened here, the fact is that Israel was able to find them in Qatar. They were prepared to do it, and in fact, they've made it quite clear that they won't be safe. It is interesting what you're talking about in terms of the comments around it. These were the deal makers. What are we talking about? As you said, it's 2 years. They haven't made a deal because what is a deal? Deal with somebody who has sworn to do this, to perpetrate October the 7th over and over again. Is that, look what they've done. What do we think? They're not going to lie. Lying is nowhere on the chart of October 7th. Why do we suddenly think that these are people that you can enter into a deal with?
I mean, I don't think that any rational player understands in that way. I think there are cynical players who are looking at this as a theater, who are driving attention to themselves driving attention to their domestic populations, especially in Europe, Australia, South Africa, that have a very large contingent of Muslims.
Mm,
So there's a lot of speaking out against Israel for their own domestic consumption. But when it comes to uh, you know, when it comes to whether or not it's the truth or not, it's about the narrative. And I think that
mm,
if we see what the narrative is, what do you want to push? We want to push a ceasefire. We want the hostages back. We want a deal. We want all this stuff. And anything that impedes in their narrative about getting in that direction, they see one way and one way only. But we've went down
mm.
that road. We've given it that option more than enough. And that option has come to a dead end. And unfortunately, or fortunately enough, we relied on Qatar to make one of their first public statements that's saying that they are now relieving themselves
Mm.
of the process of the negotiation, which in of itself is laughable.
Just one point I do want to correct is you made a comment about South Africa in terms of the demographics and the population here. I think that very much on the ground in South Africa, the ANC, the governing party, is speaking less and less for South Africans. The majority of South Africans actually don't care very much about this issue. We have significant issues here in South Africa in terms of crime, unemployment, the failing infrastructure, and I think, as you've experienced when you actually come to South Africa, people on the ground are very, very different to government. There's very little anti-Semitism on the ground here in South Africa, in fact.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I was on a plane from Johannesburg to Cape Town. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I told you this story, but
No.
I ended up in the back of the plane with 15 members of the EFF party
Oh.
and Red Berets, Kafias, everything, the whole. And there was this really big woman sitting on three seats all to herself, and I said, you know, and I was stuck between these two guys with the kafia, and I asked to move over next to her, and she was a Christian woman, Christian
Mm.
South African, and we had one of the nicest conversations, and she actually cried to me, and I told her I was from Israel, and actually they almost they the staff on the plane actually came up to me and asked me if I would like to move to a secure seat because I was under threat. There was a lot of violent threats to me. There was one EFF member who looks like he was in one of these, you know, radical militant, big
Mm.
muscles, big guy, and he came up to me and he hit my arm, he hit my shoulder really hard as he walked by to make a point,
Mm.
and it was followed by the EFF parliament member stood up and yelled at him and made him apologize to me, believe it or not.
That's
So
incredible.
I know that even in the EFF, even in the EFF, I know that they're not all under one banner.
No, and then
To be
and that I mean that's not really the point of our conversation, but I do think that that it is important to note how different it is, really on the streets in of South Africa. Uh, let's just talk about what we can anticipate. Already at this time, we've seen the United States officially condemn it, but that very much to me sounds like theatre, and I'll get your view in a moment. We've had various other comments, even across some of the world in the Middle East, criticism of Israel's attack. We've had the comments about, I mean, which I think is quite funny because, of course, the United States took out Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, and there was no real concern that they went to another country there. But still, that all aside, I really don't get the sense that much of this criticism is more than skin deep. But maybe that's what I want to think. Give me your thoughts.
well, I think it depends on which country. You have different leaders that are obviously condemning Israel. One of the weakest condemnations, by the way, was by Qatar itself. I mean,
Mm,
Qatar wasn't talking about any sanctions, anything. Saudi Arabia said that this is going to result in some sort of response, whatever that means. But you're right. I think it's all theater. But what I was really concerned about, and there was a report, actually not a report. This was her. The president of the EU commissioner came out today
Mm-hmm.
and had said that despite the fact that the European Union is one of the largest donors to Gaza throughout the years, especially since October 7th, as like she's proud of it, she said it's not enough. We need to we need to freeze cooperation in support of Israel. Okay, so they're looking for the EU to come together to freeze all cooperation across the board. But she did give a couple of exceptions. One of them is they will still cooperate with Yad Vashem. And for your viewers that don't know what Yad Vashem is, it's a Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem. Now, this is my takeaway. We're fighting a Nazi-like regime that calls for the genocide of the Jewish people who had documented themselves committing genocide against the Jewish people. They failed, but they still said that they were going to try over and over and over and over again. And they, at the same time, and as any soldier knows that goes into Gaza in anybody's home, the second most published book that is in someone's home is Mein Kampf after the Quran. So you're dealing with Nazi-like civilizations seeking to genocide the Jews, and she's celebrating the EU. The president of the EU Commission is celebrating, giving them the most money, and then stopping cooperation with Israel because we're fighting back. But she is going to continue supporting the museum. So Jews that are alive fighting against the Nazis, no good. But dead Jews that they killed in Europe, and that they want to memorialize the Jews that they killed, that's okay. We're going to keep doing that. It's beyond parody. It's disgusting, and I think that it's so beyond parody that international diplomacy, is not even on the table anymore. You're going to see Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar speak much stronger now. You're going to see Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak much stronger now. Everybody understands, if you're condemning the attack of Hamas leadership in a state that not only funds Al Jazeera, which is like the of propaganda of jihadism, but they export and they fund the Muslim Brotherhood. They are an enemy state, not only to Israel, but to the West and Western civilization. And the Western civilized world, the leadership, is coming to condemn us for bombing and targeting Hamas leaders that they're harboring and they're funding.
Right.
It's
the truth is that it shouldn't come as a surprise. We've seen these mental gymnastics when it came to Iran, when the most liberal left of all people were suddenly found themselves on the side of Iran, where there is no gender equality, there is certainly gay people are prosecuted, there's no democracy, there's no freedom of speech, any dissent is brutally dealt with, and then you had the whole the left supporting Iran during that time. It's actually incredible. It's no surprise then that they'd be critical of Israel at this time. I believe that's one of my theories as to why it is so important for them to deplatform anybody who speaks for and on behalf of Israel. That's why I was deplatformed. That's why we don't get space on mainstream media largely, because it's too hard to hear, because the veneer or the rationale is so thin that it's so easily pierced.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I'll tell you is that it's ironic that the West, who claims to be some of the most tolerant people in the world, they become so tolerant for the intolerant. They don't realize that their societies are being upended. And not only that, but while the Palestinian flag is being marched through the streets of London, Paris, Johannesburg, Cape Town, whatever it is, and they're purporting as like, look how diverse we are. Meanwhile, anybody who speaks out against them is what? They're called Islamophobic, xenophobic, all the other names, racist. What's ironic is that the Gulf states, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, they have all banned the Palestinian flag. They've all banned Palestinian marches because they understand what the flag is really symbolic of. It's not symbolic of freedom of a people. Most people don't even care about the Palestinians. Of course they don't. If they actually cared about the Palestinians in Gaza, they wouldn't be calling for a ceasefire. They would be calling for refugees. Let them out. Not to bring food into the war zone. Get the people out of the war zone to the food. And so this cynical use of people is really highlighted in the fact that the West doesn't even pay attention to what's going on in the Gulf states when they ban it. So it's not Islamophobic if UAE is banning
Or Egypt.
the Muslim Brotherhood, or all of those. So I think we really need to align with the truth. I think that the West really needs to take the advice of the Gulf states and listen to what they're saying and how they're treating this ideology, and not give them an open door, an open border for them to come in and not assimilate and take over, but to outlaw it, saying there is no place for this type of ideology in a free Western society. And it's all going to bite them in the. I mean, it already is, and you're seeing a big pushback. And you're seeing it. And I think on the 13th, in 3 days, we're going to see probably the largest rally in the UK, led by Tommy Robinson, who for years was seen as a football hooligan, right wing, crazy lunatic. His lunacy that everybody talked about is now in the center. It's mainstream now, and people are waking up. So it's still, the jury is still out. We don't know what's going to happen, but
So one of the things that I'm observing from a little bit of a distance is the not only the damage that's being done internationally and in media, and we know that Israel, every time Israel fights a war, the damage is done from a media perspective. The difference this time is it's been an incredibly long war, which means more, it hasn't gone away. Every other war that Israel has fought might have had intense criticism of Israel, but it's for a short period, and then it kind of gets back to another point. This has been a very, very long war. The damage, the narrative is significantly negative out there. I still think at the end of it, it will go back to where it should be. But a bigger concern is what I'm observing is the incredible fatigue of Israeli society and Jews around the world, but of less importance are Jews in the diaspora. More important are the people on the front lines in Israel. How does it feel there? What is happening in Israel in terms of, I don't doubt Israel's resilience, but it seems to me that people are tired.
it really depends on who you talk to. It really depends on even a person's culture, their community. It's much different. I'll give you an example. All right, so last week my wife invited her friend over for Shabbat. Now, she invited her to our home in Eli, which is in the Shomron. It's very religious, national religious Zionist. Most people join the army in the combat unit. They're very proud Jews, and they contribute to their country. And there's a very high level of faith, and there's a very high level of enthusiasm in the community. So when my wife invited her friend from the center of the country, who was one of the people who attended these Kaplan protests against the government, very left wing, and she came, and just the discussions, it's like different worlds, same people, same country, different worlds. Because I believe that as a Jew, as a person of faith, I can't be but optimistic, no matter how low things get. I know in the end it's temporary; it'll pass. But when you're not rooted in this faith, when you're rooted in just the daily news, the updates, what's going on, you're not unplugging for Shabbat. But ironically, she did. Her and her son were the first time they ever turned off their phones for 25 hours. They weren't, and they loved it. But this is the kind of drill. I mean, you put yourself in front of a news, the news 24 hours a day, it gets to you. If you are already like looking at this, like, this rage news that's just about clicks and views, it's going to create a stress, and it's going to create all of this mindset of everything is terrible. And so these are the conversations. So it really depends on who we're talking about here. I mean, I can't say either way that the mood is tired. Yes, people are tired, but it doesn't mean they're not motivated, right? There's people I know that are in Gaza, they're like, we got to finish this. Like, let's do it. Like, they want to do it. But I will tell your viewers who are very pro-Israel and support Israel, I'll tell you this, is that when the war started, one of the biggest things that we were all working on was raising money and buying gear for the soldiers. Everybody did it. Now we're shifting. Everybody's got to look at mental health and PTSD, whether it be not the hospitalization type of it. We have the institutions to do that. But those people who are kind of like under the radar that don't need hospitalization, but will affect in a significant way their family life, their marriage, their children, the way that their children are going to grow up as adults. And so I think to raise much more awareness of organizations that are treating those that are not classified as dangerous themselves, I think that's where a big part of our job should be at this point.
In other words, being that the next layer of support in that way. So initially it was actual physical support, making sure that the soldiers had what they need. From then it moves on to recovery. It moves on to living a mentally healthy and happy life, and I think that makes great sense. Gedaliah, tell me about the work that you do. Tell me about who is Gedaliah Blum.
So I'm just a guy with two hands and two arms. I'm optimistic, and I believe that everybody has an opportunity to make change for the good. And I think people generally look at themselves and they say, "Well, I'm not big enough, or I can't do as much as I could. Is it really going to make a difference?" So I'm a guy that kind of is I wasn't raised in a wealthy home. I don't have opportunities that anybody else that maybe didn't have, or maybe I do in some ways, but I did come to Israel.
Yeah, I was going to say, where did you grow up in the United States?
I grew up in New Jersey. I was born in New York. I grew up in New Jersey, and I was actually on the first birthright trip to Israel that they ever had.
Wow.
in the year 2000. I actually was chosen out of thousands of people. There was tens of thousands of people who applied for this one program that I was in, and I'll tell you a story. And this kind of like shows kind of like who I am. Is that I was in my dirty college townhouse, beer cans in the it was like an American frat house kind of setting, and I get a phone call, and they say, "Hi, this is such and such from Birthright, and we're interviewing people. We're asking them a question to see whether or not we want to accept you or not. We have one question and one question only. We have thousands of people we're calling. The question is, why do you want to come to Israel?" So I told this woman, I said, "Listen," I said, "the only person who's ever went to Israel in my whole family was my bubby, my grandmother, and my aunt who went with her. Now, I was very close to my bubby, but she passed away when I was 8 years old, so I didn't really get to know her so well. So as I got older, I asked my aunt, how was the trip for bubby? And she said it changed her life. And so, by the way, I didn't tell you this, but she went 2 years before she passed away for the first time.
Wow.
So I tell this woman on the phone, I said, "Listen," I said, I know two things. I know, number one, I know that I'm going to go to Israel at some point in time in my life. It's either with you right now or 2 years before I die. And I also know it's going to change my life. So better now than later. And the phone went completely silent. And then I just heard like these sobs in the background. She was crying.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
And I said to her, I'm like, "Does this mean I have a spot?" She's like, "You have a spot." So it changed my life. But I also, when I came to Israel, and I realized like there's a lot of people who complain, and I'm like, it's a small country. You can make it. You can make an impact. You could either complain or you could do something about it. So I decided, coming from a background of corporate America and lawyers and working in the way, I'm like, I'm not going to live that way. My work is going to be, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's always going to be for the Jewish people and the state of Israel. And so somehow it's really evolved into a bunch of different things. I'm like a mad scientist who's always inventing certain things and different initiatives. But right now, you never know what's going to develop in. But right now, I feel like one of the biggest jobs that Israelis have to do at this point is not go out into the world and say why you should support us. Oh, you should stand up for Israel and you should speak up for. No, don't do that. I go out to people and I say, you need to do this for yourself. Judean Christian values are under threat. And who do you think's on the front line? When Moses brought down the Torah on Mount Sinai, it wasn't just the Bible. It was a new world order. It was a completely new world order that disrupted the levers of power that existed back then, which is why we were attacked by Amalek. But it still exists today. You have the wokeism, the Islamism, all the communism, Marxism. They're all against the Jewish people in Israel because of what we bring into this world. We bring into this world is a threat to their power, and because it's not about that they converge on their own values. They converge on having an enemy of the Jewish people who bring in, even to this day, this value system that is a threat to how they want society to be. And this is why anybody who prescribes to Christianity, it's rooted in Judaism. This is the Judean Christian values that is under threat. So I tell people, listen, we're being attacked not because we're Jews. Or not because of borders. It's not politics. It's about what we bring into this world. And what we brought into this world, what we bring into this world is what you adopted. So when they come after the Saturday people first, they will come after the Sunday people. And so that's really the biggest hook that I have. And it's truth. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that this is World War III that we're facing today. It's a war on Western civilization. And Israel is at the front lines, and we need to open people's eyes to that fact. This is not a separate matter to them. It's not separate. Israel is not a separate issue. When you're going into your church in South Africa and you have Hamas setting up a food distribution center in one of the townships, trying to get people not to come into church. This is the battle that Israel's fighting. You're fighting it in your own backyard. And I know this because I saw this with my own eyes when I went down to South Africa. Hamas is setting up and trying to take Christians away from the church and doing exactly what they're eventually are doing to Israel. So I want people to understand that this is my
that it isn't a war in it might be geographically taking place as the epicenter might be Israel, but it's a war that is happening everywhere at different levels.
Yeah, but we also know this because the Palestinian flag, which was a symbol against occupation and Israel and everything, right? Where is it now? You see it in South Africa. Go to a rally, go to a pro-Palestinian rally, and you'll only see one flag there. Maybe you'll see a Hamas flag, maybe you'll see a Hezbollah flag.
You certainly won't see a South African flag. I agree.
No, you won't. And you go to London, you won't see because this is illustrative of what I'm trying to say. The war that's being fought against Israel is a war to replace a flag, to replace civilization. And it has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with culture. It has to do with taking over. And we're seeing this very clear. So it's not even in theory anymore. I want people to understand. Go to a Palestinian rally and see how patriotic they are for South Africa. They're not. They're telling them they're oppressors. They're going against them. They want to replace the South African flag with the Palestinian flag, which is symbolic. And again, I said this before, the Gulf states know this, and this is why they banned the flag, for this reason specifically.
Gedaliah, what keeps you motivated? Because this has been a very, very difficult year. There's no doubt that you have lost friends have lost children. There have to have been moments of real horror, sadness. What keeps you going?
I have an audience. I have a wife and I have 8 children, and if they see cracks in my resolve, uh, they're going to adopt those cracks, and they're not going to be in a place where they feel like they're strong and they're going to be able to lead the world, and they're going to feel more like victims. So, honestly, that's my very simple answer. I know that I'm being watched.
Yeah, and I think that is a great answer. That is where we leave it. Thank you for that, Gedaliah Blum. Very, very interesting conversation, very valuable, starting off talking about the very specifics of the events that have taken place over the last 24 hours, and of course expanded it much greater to talking about the impact that this war is having not only on Israel, not only on Gaza, not only in the region, but in fact around the world. This is a series where I chat to different people, those who have stood up while others have sat down. It's another edition of Imagine If I Were Sensitive. I'm Howard Feldman. Thank you for joining us.